What's the worst punishment you ever received as a child? When I was young and taking interest in girls, my parents made a rule with no girls over at the house alone with me, even to study all doors open, no locks. This all happened after I got caught in a compromising situation with my girlfriend at church. Went on like that for a while, until I was 14, 15. A friend of mine who was on the weightlifting team was over at my house one day. He was changing in my room and my parents walked in with him in his boxers and me sitting on my bed. I still remember that moment. They both paused, look at each other, and it got weird for a couple days. When they finally said something, it was very positive towards me seeing women. Got a lock on my door and girls were very welcome. In the house alone with me, even got a few "why don't you ever bring that one girl around more often?" My parents really didn't want me to be gay. How ironic. They banged girls, but they don't want you to be gay. Well, it worked out fine for the Catholic Church. 7 years old. I wouldn't move my hands from my butt, so my mom dragged me to the bathroom. While there she lifted me up by my legs and attempted to give me a swirly. My hands immediately latched onto the toilet bowl to stop my head from falling in. Then my mom freed up one of her hands to turn my ass red. After a few hits my arms gave out and my head dropped hard into the toilet water. After that she yelled at me for 5 more minutes and ordered me to take a shower. She still denies doing this or any of the other corporal punishment my sister and I were subjected to. My mom used to literally back me into a corner then start swinging. She'd stop after she got tired or thought I learned my lesson. The next day she'd buy me a crappy little crystal knick-knack from the drugstore as an apology. It would happen about twice a year. I'd threaten to call the police. She'd say they won't believe you and arrest you for lying. This went on for years. One day, when I was 16, she thought I was being mouthy, so she walked up behind me and backhanded me in the back of my head. I had enough of it and pushed her away. She started screaming to my dad that I was attacking her. He came in and put his hands on me and I wrapped my hands around his throat until he tapped and was begging me to stop. I left home for almost a month, couch surfing and probably putting myself in way too dangerous situations for a minor. I didn't go back home until my dad finally apologized to me when he got the truth of what happened from my mom. As soon as I got back home I gave away or tossed all the crappy crystal apology gifts from my mom. I confronted my mother about all this a couple years ago on Mother's Day. She denies any of it ever happening and claimed I think I'd remember if that happened. My dad can't verify any of it since she'd always do it while he was at work. But he got real quiet when I mentioned it. I'm pretty sure he knows it happened and feels guilty that he never knew. I'm 32 years old now. I'm on good terms with both of my parents. Well, in all truth, I'm on good terms with my dad and I can tolerate my mother. I've never forgiven her or ever forgotten what she did. She can claim whatever she wants, but I know what happened. I have the scars and fractures which never quite healed right. I have the occasional nightmares about it to this day. I can only hope that I rise above it all and don't make petty decisions when I'm in control and she's helpless. I'm so sorry for what happened to you and further sorry for dumping all this bullcrap here. You know what happened despite what she claims. Don't ever feel bad about staying true to yourself and what happened. All you can do now is hope that the future brings the best for yourself due to your own strength and perseverance. Not me but my son actually. He is a little fella. As are his mother and myself. She would force him to drink nothing but Pediasure with every meal and go ballistic when he would not be able to finish the terrible frozen meal she made him. She sent a message to me saying he was hiding food he didn't want to eat and that she beat his ass and I should expect bruising. The next day my father picks him up and dropped him off to my girlfriend at our house. After dinner she went to put him in the shower and was horrified at what she saw. Imagine a tiny 7-year-old boy with a completely bruised ass. And I mean deep purple, yellow, and green bruises. She called me immediately. I rushed home from work, calling the police on my way. A sergeant from my local PD was very helpful and supportive to my little boy. Told me what to file and how to file it, and that I should rush to Children's Hospital. He also called his lifelong best friend who is a captain in the town where my ex-wife lives. Within 2 weeks I had full emergency custody and she had domestic violence charges. Fast forward a year and I'm a sole custodial parent and my son is thriving. He has gained almost 20 lbs. Can now ride a bike without training wheels. He could not ride one at all when we took custody. Good food, positive attention, and lots of love have helped him grow tremendously. Well done. Your son is lucky to have you. New to this. When I was in year 2, UK, so 6 or 7 years old, I was an unruly child to say the least. I was undiagnosed ADHD. My mum had enough and told me I was getting adopted. I remember distinctively telling classmates I was leaving to live somewhere else. My mum made me tidy my room and take what I wanted in a bag and I went to my auntie's house, mum's sister, to wait for the lady to pick me up. I don't remember falling asleep, but I must have, and woke up in my auntie's spare bedroom. She took me to school that day and my mum picked me up and I went home as if nothing had happened. Years later, I'm in my late 30s now. I brought this up and my mum, she acts like it never happened. Her words exactly were, "You're living in a fantasy that never happened." So yeah, that had messed with my head quite a bit. That's classic gaslighting, mate. The worst part of my difficult childhood is the complete denial of any of it, and the accusations that I'm mentally ill for suggesting it. That can really frick with you. When I was about 7, my mother and stepdad at the time bought a new couch. You know the type, a nice new leather couch. Well, later that day my parents left for some reason I can't remember why. Maybe they went to the neighbor's house. Well, while they were gone, me and my little brother, who was 3 years younger than me, devised a plan. I had recently discovered that sharp objects could stab into cardboard boxes, and it was a fun little game. We found some boxes in the garage, and I took the knives out of the kitchen drawer. We positioned the boxes on top of the couch and stabbed the boxes a bunch of times, not realizing you were stabbing right through them into the couch. After we were done, we realized our mistake. Knowing my stepdad would be furious, I hid the knives in our walk-in closet and threw the boxes in the trash outside. I then put a blanket over the couch to hide it. When my stepdad came home, it wasn't hard for him to figure out what we had done. He flew into a rage, grabbed me by my shirt, and yelled at me. He screamed at me and asked what I had done. My brother was already crying by this point. I told him about the boxes and the knives. He then asked where the knives were at, and I told him in the closet. He opened the closet door and found them. He picked me up by the shirt and threw me into the closet. As I landed, I felt the knives pierced through my thighs, my butt, and my hands. He screamed at me, "Don't move." He then attempted to slam the closet shut, but my right leg was still in the doorway. He then grabbed my little brother by the throat with his right hand, picked him up off the ground, and pinned him against the wall. He choked my brother until he was blue. At this point I was trying to collect myself. I stood up and noticed that only one of the knives was still stuck in me. I pulled the knife out of my thigh and limped over to my stepdad. I hit him in the back and told him to stop. He then let go of my brother and his lifeless body fell to the ground unconscious. He turned around and grabbed me by the hair, dragging me into the kitchen. He grabbed the wooden pizza paddle, then dragged me back into the living room. He then bent me over his leg and hit me on the butt. Every time I would squirm or try to run away, he would hit my thighs. My legs would flail and I would scream for about the first 20 hits. I lost track of how many times he hit me, but my body went limp. When he was done, he threw me to the floor, where I laid until my mother got home. At this point my brother had regained consciousness and was crying. My stepdad walked over to him, grabbed him by the back of his shirt collar, and dragged him to the living room. He pulled off his belt and whipped him in his back until my brother stopped screaming. I mad myself from the pain that day. When he realized that he grabbed me and dragged me over to the couch, pulled down my pants, he then threw me onto the couch and told me to stay there. He was screaming at me saying, "Oh, so we want to pee our pants now? Well, if you can't be a big boy, I'll teach you." He went to the bathroom and grabbed one of my sister's diapers. He then forced me into the diaper and paddled me again. My little brother ran out of the house at this time. My stepdad chased him down and dragged him back in by his hair. He then threw us in our room, locked the door with something, and we stayed in there for the rest of the night. There was no police report filed, no neighbors called the cops, and my mother didn't say anything. Oh my freaking god. If your mom saw it, or you have a scar, or any evidence at all, take that to court right freaking now. That's not even a punishment. That's just assault. Stabbing, strangling, and beating are all punishable by law. Send that motherfracker straight to jail. I appreciate the concern, and if there is any way I could make that MF rot in hell I would. Unfortunately, besides me and my brother's memories of the event, the scars I have on my legs and butt because of it, and maybe a neighbor's witness testimony, if I could get so lucky, there isn't much evidence to go on anymore. This event occurred 17 years ago, and even if I could scrap together enough evidence, I think the statute of limitations has already expired. When I had to choose it, I had a bad progress report in middle school, so I forged my mom's signature on it. Got caught. Honestly, the writing was so shaky and my writing is terrible at the jump. Don't know how I thought that was a good shot. When the school called my parents, they said they'd talk to me when I got home. They said I had to decide what my punishment was. Obvious trap. Too hard on yourself and that sucks. Too lenient and they come down hard. That choice was worse than the actual punishment. I was friends with a girl in high school that had amazing handwriting, much better than my mom's. She signed everything I needed a parent's signature for. I'm talking all 4 years. On the very rare occasions my mom would actually get to sign something was when I was accused of forging her signature. It's best to get someone else to do it because they won't be so nervous about it, and the signature comes out more believable lol. My mum spent the entire day making dinner. Picky little mini me didn't feel like eating, so she pulled me by the hair and sent me flying to my room to lock me in it. When she threw me in, I hit the corner of the bed and cut my head open. I almost died because I didn't feel like mashed potatoes. I found a solution that seems to work with my kids, ages 2 and 4. They don't have to eat their food, but treats and desserts, and only for people who eat their dinner, parents included. There's a reason grown-ups get fat. We also have seen a rise in better eating behavior since we started having them participate in making dinner. They get to peel carrots and potatoes, hold a pan, while we spray it W/oil, and watch the timer to let us know when it's done. I think by participating, they feel less inclined to reject. I got scolded on my 10th birthday for accidentally tripping and spilling spaghetti. We were having the party outside, and it was getting dark, so I wanted to help put things away. So I started carrying the leftover spaghetti and tripped, causing it to spill on the pavement. My parents were furious at me and sent me to my room. I apologized to them, telling that it was an accident, but they didn't let up and yelled at me some more. I went to my room crying, with my siblings coming upstairs to comfort me while my parents were still yelling. That was the worst birthday I ever had. To this day, I never told my parents about it because they would be too embarrassed or ashamed about what they did to a 10-year-old kid. I would tell them honestly,